So we're gonna do more graphing today. I think I'm gonna kind of switch it up. The big thing I want us to do is be able to look at a graph and be able to tell the slope and the y-intercept of the graph and from the equations. Okay, so we're gonna go more into those three equations we learned last time. So in a graph, there's certain things we need to be able to point out. Now, with a linear graph, it's pretty easy to do this. We're gonna get later on in the year, we're gonna look at different other types of graphs, like a quadratic graph and an exponential graph. So those have different features, but a linear line is pretty straightforward. So these are the 4 things that we should feel confident about. And what I kind of suggest today is that you get on the Zoom and take a screenshot of what we're doing, or if you can like get a blank graph, like go look on Google real quick and press graph and take a screenshot of that or save that picture and use that today to annotate on your own screen. That would probably help out, because watching me do stuff today probably won't be beneficial. When you're doing it, that's going to help you. So slope is also known as rate of change. That's a big thing that you need to remember. Slope and rate of change are the same thing. And the way I find slope is rise over run. So I know that we looked at this last class, but it's good to just keep remembering because you're going to see it all year long. Your y-intercept is where your line crosses the y-axis. A good thing to know about this point is at this point, your x value is 0. And whatever that y value is, that's your b. This is important. We're going to definitely be using this later on in the year, is understanding, oh, at the y-intercept, the x value is 0. So what can I do with that? So we're going to be looking at that later on in the year. Another thing that we're adding on is this. So this is the big one that we're adding on today. We're going to be looking at the zeros of a graph. When I'm saying zeros, that's the same thing as x-intercept. You need to know the term. So I would like write that down in the journal or something like that. Or somewhere in your notes. So zeros and x-intercept are the same thing. So this is where the graph crosses the x-axis. So this is where the graph crosses the x-axis. And at this point, right, your y value would be 0. So I'm going to put x 0. So this is the point where your y value is 0. And then, of course, domain and range. So domain are my x values and range are my y values. All right. So let's look at this graph real quick, and y'all can answer out loud. I don't want to do that. So on this graph, what is the y-intercept of this graph?
6.
Good, 6. It crosses the y-axis at 6. So this is my y-intercept. What is the x-intercept of this graph?
8.
8, perfect. Crosses the x-axis at 8. So the x-intercept is 8. Can you figure out the slope? By looking, I don't know, it's a little bit more difficult, but if you have this on your screen, you might be able to do it better. Anybody got slope? Anybody got the slope? So remember, our slope is rise over run. Here, I know my slope is going to be negative because this line is going down. So it's going to be negative something. So we need to look over at rise over our run. So it's rising 1, 2, 3. And it's running 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope is -3 over 4. We're not going to do the domain of range because I didn't put solid dots or anything on here, so, or closed circles rather, or open circles. So this is the big thing. We at this point, this is what I want us to be confident about. So go ahead and look at this graph, study it real quick. If you're on here, I suggest you just, like I said, take a screenshot and then annotate it in your photos. I liked what Eduardo was doing last time where he was like taking screenshots and then he was able to zoom in and zoom out, and it was, I don't know, that was really good. All right, on this graph, what's the y-intercept? Awesome. What's the x-intercept?
5.
Awesome, awesome. And remember, this is also called a 0. This is also called a 0. And can anyone tell me my slope?
-1. Yes, 4 over 5.
Awesome. So the y-intercept is 4 over 5. So I can use just my x and y-intercept as the points. So I'm looking for my rise over my run.
Oh.
It's going up 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my rise. And my run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is my run. So my slope, and this is positive because this line is going up, is positive 4 over 5. So if I was to write the equation, I didn't write it on the other one. If I was to write the equation in slope-intercept form, y equals 4/5 x minus 4. Minus 4 because the y-intercept is -4. All right, so this is, I need you to feel confident in this. This is where I need you to feel confident, okay? So that link that I put on the chat, if you don't feel confident finding slope and y-intercept, I would highly suggest that you practice on that link. You can keep going, and it has a ton of questions you can keep going through. Also, if you didn't know, I posted an extra credit assignment in the announcements on Canvas. Y'all actually did it last year, but I doubt any of y'all kept the paper for it. Well, you kind of did it. So it will either replace your lowest daily grade, or it will replace, or it'll add 10 points to a major grade. So if you want to do that, that's on Canvas. It's due this Friday. All right. So y equals mx plus b. So we're going to go through the 3 equations again. But we have to feel more confident. So M stands for slope. I hope at this point we all know that. And B stands for y-intercept. I just want to say that if my equation looks like this instead, where they put the B first and the mx last, they're the same equation. For instance, y equals -1/2 x plus 2 is the same thing as y equals 2 minus 1/2 x, right? The y-intercept is still +2. and the slope is still -1/2. You know this is the slope because it's a coefficient of x. It's multiplied to x. So I just want us to understand that even if my equation is switched up, if the numbers are the same, then it's the same equation, okay? So I actually don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we should, since y'all are high school, I know I taught this to you last year. So we should feel pretty confident with the M and the B. What I'd rather spend a lot of time on are these type equations, these new ones. Okay, so in this equation, I'm going to remind us from last class, M still represents slope. And the other thing that the equation gives us is this point, x1 and y1. This is the point that it gives us on our graph. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to graph an equation. So this is why I said I would suggest you have a picture of a graph and annotate it on your screen or something of that sort. So let's look at an equation. And I think I'm gonna let your next test be open notes. So I suggest that you write some good notes, especially with these equations. All right, so I will copy this down. Y minus 4 equals 1/2 x plus 4. So my question is, what is the slope of this equation? Hmm? Well, let's look back at this. What represents slope in this equation? The m value.
1/2.
So the number that would be the slope in this equation would be the 1/2 because this is in the spot of m. So this is our slope right here, 1/2. Now, this is the second question I'm going to ask, but I'm going to answer myself to kind of help remind us. Sorry, let me get this thing out here. All right. The second question is, what point does it give us? If you remember from last class, in the point slope formula, you can think of the inside the parentheses as opposite. So if it says x plus 4, the x value it's giving us is -4. And if it says y minus 4, the y value that it's giving us is +4. So this is the point. This is the x and the y that this graph is giving us. So we're actually going to graph this. So this is why I say, just looking at me, time will go by so much faster if you kind of try to do it with me, okay? So the first thing I say to do is graph this point. -4, 4, graph this point on your graph. So -4, +4 is right here. So here's the point that it gave us. Then from this point, you're going to use your slope. Your slope is 1/2. Your slope is 1/2. So your rise over run is 1/2. So that means you're going to rise 1 and run 2. That's what it's telling you what to do with your slope. So since this is positive, this is what I say. If it's positive, you're always going to rise up and you always run to the right to graph. So I'm going to rise up 1 from this point and run to the right 2. Rise up 1, run 2. Rise up 1, run 2. And I could keep going. I really don't need to. And then there's the line to my graph. That's a pretty straight line. Thank you very much. But here's another question. So I'm going to challenge you real quick. Can y'all see this yellow over there?
Yeah.
All right. What if I asked you, can I change this to say y equals mx plus b, or to be a y equals equation? Could we do that? Could we change this so that it just says y equals instead of y minus 4?
Yes.
Yeah, we can. I want to simplify this equation so that it tells me my slope and y-intercept. So I don't want this point. I want the y-intercept. And I want to simplify this. So I would do this in your journals as well, if you're taking notes. First thing I would do is I would distribute this 1/2. Because I want to totally simplify this. I want to get rid of all these parentheses. I want to see if I can make this a y equals equation. When I do that, this side gives me y minus 4. 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. 1/2 times 4 is positive 2. That's looking much better than this nonsense up here. And then I want to get rid of this minus 4. How could I get rid of it? Add 4, thank you. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. That's going to give me y equals 1/2 x. 2 plus 4 is 6. If I go look at this graph, that matches perfectly. I have a y-intercept of positive 6 and a slope of 1/2. So now this is much easier to me to read than the one up there. So my suggestion is whenever you get these equations, if you do not feel confident looking at this equation and saying, oh, the slope is 1/2 and the point that it's giving me is negative 4, 4, you can simplify this equation and make it into a y equals equation. So I'm going to ask, because I did that pretty fast, does anyone need another example of me changing it into a y equals equation? No? Y'all all understood that? Okay, then go ahead. Let me use a different color. I don't know how well it's going to show up on y'all on the screen over there. Go ahead and change this equation into a y equals equation. So go ahead and simplify this so that we're isolating the y variable. When you do that, write your answer in the chat.
Yes, I got it.
All right, put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. Thirty more seconds, people. Be confident. Yeah, what she said. All right. Well, let's look. First thing I would do is distribute this 2. That will give me y plus 2 equals 2x. 2 times minus 3 would be minus 6 or negative 6. Then I have this y plus 2 plus 2. To get rid of the plus 2, I got to subtract 2. That will give me y equals 2x minus 8. Awesome.
Never mind.
Let me see.
But it's the right concept. I just didn't add. What did you say, honey? What did you add? You're not supposed to add anything.
All right, one more thing, and then I'm done. So this is, if you remember, this is the standard form equation. And remember, I told you I don't want you memorizing the rule, and I'm sure, I don't know if anyone has. I said m equals negative a over b, the slope, that's how I find slope, and the y-intercept is c over b. But this is a shortcut if you understand why, right? What I'd rather you do is change the equation to be in slope-intercept form. So for example, let's say I had 3x plus 2y equals 8. And I want to change this into slope-intercept form, or I want it to say y equals. Can someone tell me how I would get rid of this positive 3x? Perfect. I think I heard someone say minus 3x. So I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides. When I do that, this cancels out. Bring down the 2y. And over here, I got 8 minus 3x. And then what do I do with this 2? Divide it. Perfect. Or divide it because it's multiplied to y. And when I do that, that gives me y equals 8 divided by 2 is 4. Negative 3 divided by 2 is negative 3 over 2. I'm not going to try to reduce that. X. So then my y-intercept is positive 4, and my slope is negative 3 over 2.
Oh, so we do that instead of just writing all over 2.
Yeah, I would, because like this looks confusing. And so I would at least divide them so that I know what my y-intercept is and what my slope is. And what you should notice, your y-intercept is 4, and over here we said the y-intercept is c over b. Well, 8 over 2 is 4. And we said the slope is negative a over b. Well, negative a over b would be negative 3 over 2, which is negative 3 over 2. So if you can understand why these shortcuts work, I don't care if you use the shortcuts, but I would always just change it into y equals so that I know for sure I'm doing the right thing.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you another example on this page. I want you to change it into y equals, put it in the chat, and then try to graph it as well on your own. So let me think. I just always try to use simple numbers. So what I want you to do is to change this equation into y equals, and then put it in the chat. So I'm gonna give you 1 minute and 30 seconds. watch out for all the negatives. That's what might get people, all those negatives. If you're scared to put it in the chat because no one else has, you can private message me. Don't be scared of it. We're all friends here.
Okay, yeah.
All right, well, let's go through it. Good job, ladies. Yes, you're correct. All right. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so first thing I want to do is get rid of this positive 2x. How would I get rid of it? Yeah, so if I added 2x, that would just bring me 4x on this side. I want to get rid of it, so I would subtract 2x. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. That will give me, bring down the negative 5y. And this will give me negative 10 minus 2x. Then, what would I do with this negative 5?
Add 5.
So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. That gives me
Dang it!
negative 10 divided by negative 5 is positive 2. And negative 2x divided by negative 5 is positive 2 over 5x.
Oh my God.
So if I was to graph this, the y-intercept is positive 2. So I'll put the positive 2 on the y-axis. And then my slope is 2 over 5. So my rise is 2 and my run is 5. And since this is positive, I go up 2 and I go to the right 5. So up 2 over 5. Up 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Up 2 over 5. And this is what my line would look like. That one's not as straight, but you know what I mean. Okay, so that is, I just want to show you really quickly, what if my slope was negative? You don't have to write this down. I'm going to do this in 30 seconds. What if my slope was negative, for instance, y equals negative 3/4 x plus 8. My y-intercept is positive 8. My slope is negative 3/4. So I would start with my y-intercept and plot it on the graph. And since my slope is negative 3/4, my rise is 3, my run is 4. Since it's negative, I say go down 3, but you always are going to run to the right. So down 3, 1, 2, 3, run 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 3, to the right 4. And this would be the graph of a negative. So if we were in class, I would just give y'all a whole bunch of graphs and make you keep graphing, but we're not. So, all right. Let me stop.
Yeah.
What?
Speaking of class, I thought you were back this week.
Huh?
Well, now I thought you said you were coming this week.
I did not say I was coming this